I got no more use for the Rams. We're on to the San Francisco 49ers. Niners are going to finish, where are they here? 25th.
Yeah, not high.
In the composite B+. I kind of liked their draft. I think I was skewed by my like for the players, even though they probably went higher than the consensus. But B+ for PFF for the 49ers. It starts with wide receiver Ricky Pearsall from Florida. Of all the first-round names, maybe the biggest surprise, but to repeat a million times, if any of 15 receivers went in the first round, we wouldn't have been terribly surprised. So Pearsall's the guy.
Right.
Renardo Green, the cornerback out of Florida State. Dominic Pooney, the tackle/guard out of Kansas. Malik Mustapha, the safety out of Wake Forest. Isaac Guerrero, another 4-3 running back going to Kyle Shanahan and the Rams of the 49ers out of Louisville. Jacob Cowing, the wide receiver out of Arizona. I didn't mind this draft. I like all the drafts, guys. I like all of them.
You liked all the draft.
What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a solid enough draft. The 49ers have a terrible draft record in the last couple of years. It's basically the whole thing is being papered over by the fact that they found Brock Purdy with the last pick of the draft. Remember last year they were the team that everybody hated their draft because they drafted like a backup tight end in the third round. They drafted a kicker. Like their draft. Now, to be fair,
they also had I think they had the fewest snaps from their draft class last year.
Right, and to be fair, they didn't
top
pick.
Pick was at pick 87.
Yeah, they didn't pick until like the ass end of the third round, and then they had 3 and 4 or something at the back end of the third. But they were the team last season that everybody hated their draft like immediately.
I'll give you a quick recap. Over the last couple of years, you've got guys like J.R. Brown. He was their top pick last year at safety.
Yep.
I don't think they had any starters from last year's draft, and then the previous draft, Drake Jackson in the second, who's more of a rotational edge.
And
Spencer Burford's the only real starter
Yep.
that they found, besides Brock
Purdy.
Purdy, of course, with the very last pick of 22. So the non-quarterback selections for the Niners the last couple of years have not been great.
And then obviously, even if you go back a little bit previously, the Trey Lance thing is one of the most catastrophic draft trades that's been made ever. I mean, they traded literally – I'm not messing with semantics. They traded 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance, and Trey Lance is no longer with the team, and they got, a second back for him when they traded him away. So it's one of the most catastrophic moves that's been made. It's just that it doesn't matter because you got Brock Purdy, the Mr. Irrelevant pick, following that. So anyway, you look at this, you say, okay, yeah, on paper I like what they've brought. You're just now sort of a little bit twitchy because of the recent history. Pearsall, surprising pick for a first rounder, even in the context that you put it in, I think, in terms of 10 receiver names wouldn't have shocked you going in the first round. Pearsall is still one of the more surprising, even in that context. But it probably shouldn't be. I mean, he's got, going into the Senior Bowl, you're like, this is a route running technician with, amazing ability to sort of separate and is really like all the cliches that non-athletic receivers get, and then he goes to the combine. Well, he has a really good Senior Bowl. Then he goes to the combine and has one of the most athletic displays.
I didn't see the cliches because I warned Jim Nagy. I said before the Senior Bowl, I said, watch, he's going to be one of the fastest there at the Senior Bowl on your GPS. He plays fast. He's the fastest guy on the field when Florida plays every single week.
But people,
I didn't see the cliches.
Right. But people, I mean, even Nagy was sort of saying, like, he was talking up the technician stuff as opposed to, hey, by the way, this guy's like an absurd athlete. But he goes and has a 42-inch vertical jump, 99th percentile, a record-setting 6.4-second three-cone time, a 95th percentile 20-yard shuttle, a 92nd percentile broad jump, like 92nd or higher percentile in basically everything, a 4.4 flat 40 time, which is 87th percentile. He's one of the best athletes, not just in this draft, but forever. I mean, and he's 6'1", 190. That's not a slot profile either that you're like, oh, he can only play the slot. He is one of the most athletic receivers who has arguably the greatest catch of all time on his resume in college and is a route running technician and understands how to get open and stuff. Like, he probably should have been seen as a first round pick.
So I might be a little biased here the same way people are evaluating the Chiefs draft and they're saying, well, Xavier Worthy is the 5th wide receiver off the board. I probably wouldn't do that, but he's going to Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, so that's going to work.
Right.
I might be applying the same logic here that, hey, Ricky Pearsall, I don't know if I would pick him at pick 31. However, when it's Kyle Shanahan in that offense and you see that athletic profile being dropped into that offense, which as of right now still has Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Juwan Jennings, who's sneakily one of the better wide receiver threes in the NFL, who's got a toughness and just a toughness about him. They're catching the ball over the middle. And now you've got Pearsall in getting the ball in his hands in creative ways, getting him into space in creative ways. And Pearsall, he may have won the entire offseason because of that combine that he had. But even before that, the Senior Bowl that he had, his first rep at the Senior Bowl, he got wrecked. He got absolutely mauled by, I forget who the corner was, but when corners have their hands on him throughout the route, as this happens with a lot of receivers, if they're just not physical enough, they just can't do anything.
Right.
And I remember looking at that being like, not good for Pearsall. He didn't get covered the rest of the week, though. The rest of the week, he was fine. And he's another one of those guys where you say, give him a little bit of space, keep him away from press, everything that the Shanahan offense does. So with Ricky Pearsall getting free releases into the secondary, plus being a part of the jet sweep, end around game and everything, outstanding fit for the Niners. And then when you see that they came back with Jacob Cowing in the fourth, the receiver that has at least 2 comparisons to Deshaun Jackson by evaluators, for whatever that's worth. I don't think that's what Jacob Cowing is, but I think a good fourth-round receiver. The Niners have added some depth at a position where they've had all these trade talks for Brandon Ayuk, for Deebo Samuel, so they've added some depth at a really important position. And again, I think Pearsall immediately becomes a playmaker in this offense no matter who is out there on the field with him.
No, agreed. I do think that one area that's interesting is that athleticism to me shows up better on short cuts, like short, sharper. Like this is why I think partly that a lot of people sort of had him labeled as a slot receiver versus an outside guy is he's absurdly good at short area cuts, like the underneath stuff where he's just able. I don't think he's as sharp and clean on the deeper full speed cuts, the kind of stuff that Ladd McConkey is actually amazing at. So I think in those ways he operates at a slightly different areas of the field. And actually it's why I felt McConkey was a better fit for this offense than Pearsall. It's interesting that they went in the opposite direction. Garendo is another player we need to talk about.
More 4-3 speed in the backfield.
So but when I hadn't got to Garendo's tape yet when the combine had happened and he put out, he became was he the fastest running back at the combine or at least tied with Jalen Wright for the fastest? I think they both ran 4.33. But he runs 4.33, which is absurdly fast. He has a 42-inch vertical, which is also absurdly good. 10.9 broad jump, very good, 96th percentile. At 225, like I assumed he was a 200-pound, speed back at that size. And then I put on his tape and I'm like, wait, this guy's huge. How did he run a 4.33? That's crazy.
I don't look at speed scores, but I assume it's high. They just look at speed and weight.
Right, it's adjusted for weight. So running a 4.33 at 220 plus pounds is nuts.
Yeah, and that's what the Niners do, man. They add athletes and find ways to use them. I know. Pooney's another guy I just wanted to highlight. I'll ask Renner about him on Monday. He loved Pooney as a first-round guard. He was one of those guys that he loved late in the first. Athletic type of player. He's got really strong hands. I think he's probably a better guard than tackle. He was a tough evaluation because he never had any kind of true pass set like at Kansas. It was all quick game. It was all quick sets. It looked like he was blocking for a zone running play when he was in pass protection. But he's got that guard potential, and I think that fits a need too. I'm all about starting caliber guards in the third round. Christian Haynes going to the Seahawks, which we'll talk about in a second here. Pooney's another one, just a couple picks earlier, I believe it was, that I think has a chance to start at guard, whether it's this year or next year. So I think that's a good fit as well. And then, in a safety class where there was no real consensus top safety except maybe Tyler Nubin. Some people liked Malik Mustapha. I think that was Nate Tice's guy. And they get him in the fourth round, downhill type of safety.
Yeah, you can see what there is. Like his tape is obvious why you would love him. He's incredibly light on his feet. Like his movement skills are really, really nice. Like he just flows in his movements. And when he sees it, when he clicks and he decides to go, he flies to the football. Now he's got some really rough reps in like off man coverage where he just kind of freezes flat footed.
Yeah,
that's not great. When you're talking about you need to be safe at safety, that's the opposite of being safe.
Mustafa felt like the opposite of safe at safety.
When you're it's worth prefacing that sort of alignment, right? Playing deep off coverage against like a route that's coming one-on-one to you, when the guy's got a 10-yard head start, it's kind of a no-win proposition, right? You are basically screwed if that guy decides that's where we're going in this play. But if you're in that role, this is where tape study and those things comes into, because you have to anticipate. You can't react because you're too late, right? Particularly when you're going up against guys that know what they're doing. We talked about Jalen McMillan from Washington understanding how to make you go to the wrong side. So you need to know what they're running. You need to understand the route concept that's happening in front of you, not just the route that's coming at you, but where are the other routes going, because that dictates the probability of where your route is, right? If they've got something else breaking this way, it's not going to be the corner. It's coming to you. It's the post. So you have to understand and anticipate. He doesn't do that. He stands there flat-footed and tries to react, at which point you're already too late and you're done.
Is he playing the game through a straw a little too much?
But between that, the sort of flat-footed, late-to-react stuff, and he can be very aggressive. Like the counter to that when he decides and he flies to the football is sometimes he decides wrong, and then you're in trouble because you're flying to the football and the football's not going there. So you can see on his tape exactly what there is to love. I think there's a very good football player in there, but there's some rough edges to smooth off in terms of, all right, we need to get you understanding what you're looking at, and you need to be a tick more careful in terms of guesswork.
The one other guy I wanted to highlight was Renardo Green from Florida State, the corner. Another one of those guys, as you said, profile-wise. How many times did you write in your cornerback notes, very good in man, but maybe doesn't see the field as well in zone. Maybe just a one-sided style player. But Renardo Green, as good as it gets maybe in man coverage in this class for corners.
He went one-on-one in man coverage against Malik Neighbors, who people are saying is, uncoverable one-on-one. And he gave as good as he got. Now, he got beaten a couple of times, including for a ridiculous touchdown where he had phenomenal coverage on the play. And I was literally going to use it as a reason that the shoulder shrug release thing for Malik Neighbors sucks, because he couldn't get off the contact. Green had him locked up and had him physically in touch the whole way in the end zone. And I'm right at the point of writing this down, being like, you see, this is why you can't do that in the NFL. And then the ball comes in and Neighbors makes this spinning adjustment and gets a foot in, and it's a touchdown. And you're like, God damn it, he saved it with a ridiculous adjustment. But anyway, the point being, Green was able to go one-on-one with him in man coverage against a guy that's seen as like an absolutely sick route runner, explosive, quick, and he was able to give as good as he got in that. Really good man cover corner.
Yeah, so I thought it was good.
And the grades, by the way, back that up. 90 grade in man coverage, 68 in zone coverage.
Yeah, there was a lot of those splits this year for the corners. I kind of like this Niners draft, maybe a little bit more than the consensus would. Maybe because I see the path for Pearsall becoming a huge playmaker for the Niners. Any UDFAs you wanted to highlight there?
Tanner Mordecai, the Wisconsin quarterback. Now, that's unconfirmed, allegedly.
He finally finished college, huh?
Yeah.